Hans Creek from SAFE, who was listening to that interview and I'm sure has some thoughts on that. You heard from Michael Laws. He says, Hans, that the science is on his side, that animals aren't people, and that very rarely do any animals experience any pain at rodeos in New Zealand. What do you say to that?
Yeah, good morning, Jack. Well, you know, Michael Laws speaks out of a hole of his head, really. The fact is that science actually is on our side, and he proudly refers to the National Animal Welfare Advisory Committee, whose code I abide by. Well, actually, when you look on page 10 of the code, it actually says that calves should not be used in rodeo as a best practice. Clearly ignored by Mr. Laws and his rodeo companions there. Calves are obviously baby animals, and as you pointed out, they are swung through the air with a rope around their neck, smashed into the ground. These animals suffer, and there's a big report that's been done, an Australian report, commissioned, believe it or not, by the Rodeo Association there, that actually points out that these animals suffer from acute stress. And Michael also said that animals don't suffer any pain. Well, you tell that to the bull who a few weeks ago broke its leg in the arena, lay there for 10 minutes panting heavily before somebody finally put it out of its misery and killed it. It is complete nonsense to say that these animals don't suffer. And this is why animal welfare groups around the world are opposed to it. Not just animal rights groups, groups like World Animal Protection, the SPCA, they all oppose it. And anyone who has ever been to a rodeo, and I've been there many, many times, can see that the animals can suffer. Maybe some people just can't understand that animals can have feelings. Michael Laws seems to think that farm animals can't suffer, but pet animals can suffer. And when he says that we think that animals are humans, no, he is so wrong. Actually, humans are other animals.
It's always a payoff in these things, isn't it, Hans? And the problem is, from a layman's perspective, that you get into an argument where one side says this science overrules the science on this side, and then it goes back and forth, and it all becomes a bit of a confusing situation. But would you be satisfied if rodeos in New Zealand were to say continue but scrap using calves and didn't do the calve rope and tie?
It would be a first step, but when you look at it, it's actually not as complex, and it's not only just about who says what with regards to the science. You just need to look at our animal welfare law, the Animal Welfare Act, that says that it's illegal to do unnecessary harm to animals, so unnecessary pain and suffering. Well, rodeos are clearly unnecessary pain and suffering because it's done for the sake of entertainment. Just because a few people like to get some fun and sit there and watch animals being abused doesn't make it right. So the fact that we have a rodeo code in itself is actually only there, the code, to protect the industry from going on. Without that code, they will be prosecuted and actually wouldn't exist.
But Hans, there will be many people watching right now who say, you know what, there are more than just a few people in New Zealand who enjoy going to rodeos. They have an important cultural place, particularly in rural communities in New Zealand, and they have had for a very long time. And when you consider things internationally, New Zealand standards would be well ahead of most places around the world. What do you say to those people who say, you know what, this is just the fun police coming to town, and yep, some animals do get a bit stressed from time to time, but you know what, that's the cost of a good day out for a whole community? Well,
and some animals get injured and some animals die, actually, for the sake of a bit of fun for other people. But it's not actually true. You say it's fun for especially rural communities. But when you really think about it, you know, rodeos are a disgrace to rural communities, because what good farmers do, for instance, is try to inflict the least amount of stress on their animals. They try to treat animals with the most respect so that the animals suffer the least. Rodeos do exactly the opposite. They rack them up, they stress them out as much as they can so that they perform. And so when you're actually a good farmer, you wouldn't want to be seen dead anywhere near the rodeo.
Thanks for your time this morning, Hans. Really appreciate it. That is Hans Creek from SAFE.